let me just drop the straight facts.
Let's do this.
This is the best animated fight sequence in all of One Piece history. In the entire compendium of One Piece animated greatness, it is these 3 minutes that stand at the top, the tippy top. And that's a full stop.
Amazing.
But what? King, whoa, wait a minute.
Hold up.
Hold on. What about Zoro versus King, the end of that episode, which was insane when King the Wildfire starts going crazy? You're a Katakuri fanboy, right? Duh, I am. Katakuri versus Luffy has some excellent, dope as all hell choreography. And you're telling me that in this episode we have the tippy top? Correctamundo. Correctamundo, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Well, let's talk about it. But first and foremost, obviously, I have seen this episode, the entire thing, and my reaction, oh, the sweat, oh, the towel, oh, the dancing and the jumping and the woo, all that good stuff is on my Patreon first and foremost. And then later on, will be uploaded to the appropriate places, aka the Cole-san YouTube channel. Now, this sequence is unbelievably phenomenal. If this anime episode was just the sequence and that alone, it would be a perfect score rating up there with episode 10, 15 of One Piece. However, episodes are 20 plus minutes long. It is not the entirety of the episode, not even close. But we still have to give credit where credit is due because Toei Animation continues to deliver phenomenal material. So first and foremost, the direction goes to Nanami Michibata. Lead animation is Hone Hone and Kazuya Hisada. Screenplay is Hitoshi Tanaka. Storyboard is Hone Hone again and Masahiro Hosada. And then some of the animators involved in the creation of this episode of One Piece are Shusuke Hiyozumi, Paranosuke Horio Horai, Fasto, Shotaro Ban, Hiromi Ishigami, Hiroyuki Takashima, back at it again, Kazutaka Sugiyama, Shun, Shota Shigetsugu, Isuta Meister, Kaisuke or Kisuke Okura, Shu Sugita, Yen BM, Vincent Chansard, and I'm gonna just give a general, once again, much love to everyone that was involved in the creation of this episode as a whole of One Piece. Now, before we get into like the god tier, like the actual unironic god tier material, we have to recognize other great things, other big things in this episode. There are 2 things in particular, but side things like Orochi getting some unironic dragon animation sauce, or let's say Usopp running around, all well and good, all well and good. But the 2 other things that I thought were key, that were pretty damn good in this episode, well, number 1, in the past, we see the moment where Momonosuke decides to actually go along with the other samurai, and we see Lady Toki like reaching out towards Momonosuke after he's actually gained the will to move forward and go forward 20 years in the future. You have to recognize that Momonosuke is only an 8-year-old kid. I'd argue personally, he is one of the best written characters in this arc. I think he is either number 1 or number 2. Number 2, it's pretty obvious. You can't miss it. You look in the sky and it's everywhere. It's Luffy's gigantic titanic fist. Luffy is unironically playing Ashura's Wrath, and that fist is titanic. I did a video on how big it could be. It's a long 1 hour plus masterclass video over here, but spoiler warnings in case you're an anime only watcher. But I do plan on taking some of those topics and spreading them around in more digestible times, like let's say for shorter videos and of course for shorts. Even before we get to see him make that fist, the lead up to it was actually pretty damn good. Where you have Kaido in dragon form do that gigantic dragon twister demolition breath barrage, and then afterwards you have him do that blast breath. Those were actually some pretty damn good animated scenes. And then also low-key too, is that compared to the manga version of 1047, Luffy makes his fist much quicker. Where in the manga we do see his right arm stretched out off panel, kind of implying that he's kind of set up and prepping for this gigantic fist. But in the anime, it's not the case. When in the anime, he's still burned, but his right arm is still by his side. So he actually makes it much quicker in the anime version compared to the manga version. And also, one last thing too, new intro. The new intro slaps. It was directed by Megumi Shitani, and just her greatness continued. But the intro I thought was a good homage to Wano Country as a whole, which is the longest running arc in the entire series of One Piece, by far. If I recall correctly, it's over 4 years long. That's how long Wano Country has been. It started before the big bad virus shook the world. But what's absolutely positively nuts is those 3 minutes of animation supreme quality. Just some of the greatest things you ever see in anime, full stop, period. The reason why I mentioned Luffy versus Katakuri and of course Zoro versus King is that people, I think, are gonna use these two fights the most to kind of show you what better animation sequences are gonna be compared to what we saw in this episode. No. I would say in a general sense, right? Because I rewatched those moments. It's all fantastic, phenomenal stuff on both ends, of course, without a doubt. However, even though Zoro versus King is outstanding animation, and even though Luffy versus Katakuri is maxed out studly choreography, I would argue that these 3 minutes combines that animation with that choreography. Bakana. Let's go through the play-by-play. Off the rip, the animation once again is, I think, at least just as good as the best content we saw from Zoro versus King. We start off with some Katakuri greatness. Kaido uses future sight to dodge Luffy's Zeus's lightning bolt throw. It's actually the same animation that they gave Katakuri when he sees the future before it becomes the donut. It's the like 1 for 1. It is the exact. Oh, and that's when I knew we were gonna be in for something otherworldly. Just jaw-dropping, put in the history books. Number 3, Luffy throws an additional 6 lightning pathways around Kaido and proceeds to Bellamy around him, which had me stun-locked for a good minute. Especially when the bolts start to gain more energy and then they snap back into place around Kaido. Yeah. No, the way Luffy bounced around the bolts in the first place to reach Kaido? Like, just tapping into every lightning fanboy. He was tapping into my soul. Number 4 is that Luffy could stretch for miles and circle around the entire horn on the left-hand side, the one that Zoro cut, and get back to the main battlefield in 1 bound. That is low-key scary stuff, because it shows you how far he can stretch now before he even makes that gigantic fist in the air. Then number 5 is that we see like sort of star formation as he's doing like these Roadrunner runs in the air. And it kind of feels like from now on in the anime at least, those Roadrunner Sonic spinning leg features are gonna be the new form of air travel for Gear 5. Not the only form, but like the most consistent form, because he does it time and time again, where he's treading air like an unironic Animaniacs character. Then after this, number 6, Luffy catches one of the lightning bolts that hits the ground, and then he used that bolt to whip around and build momentum like a slingshot. He catches one of these stroke returns mid-bolt. Oh man, the way Luffy was toying around with lightning, like this kid is insane. But compared to number 8, it's nothing. But first, number 7. Number 7, Kaido used the ground that actually stayed as rubber momentarily to springboard himself in the air to match Luffy, where they have that sort of blue and purple clash in the sky. And then Kaido's theme starts to hit. Kaido hits Luffy. Kaido hits Luffy with an up smash, and Luffy gets sent so high he's back near the clouds. But Luffy doesn't go into the clouds. He does some inverted sky Spider-Man across the multiverse activity. Boom, that guy right there, Miles Morales. And then he's upside down on the cloud. That alone shook my soul. But then he proceeds to do the iconic Gear 2 stance. And then he grabs a herd. Like a herd, it's weird, a herd of lightning bolts that were embedded into the cloud that he just turned to rubber. And so he rubberfies that whole gigantic cloud and the bolts in it, and then he uses those bolts like gigantic spaghetti strings to fire off against Kaido. It's hella early, and I'm trying so hard not to get hyped, just re-envision what he did. but that was one of the wildest, one of the craziest, coolest, jaw-dropping moments I've ever seen in any One Piece fight. But the madness didn't stop there. Number 9, Luffy hurls the bolts at Kaido with the same animation style. Vincent Chan, I believe it was him, he gave King the Wildfire when King the Wildfire did the Imperial Flaming Wing Swarm against Zoro. It's the same animation, but instead of these fire dragons, it's gigantic columns, bolts of lightning. Insanity. I almost fainted. When they show you that pan out shot of what Luffy did, the lightning swarm he makes is massive. What King the Wildfire did looks like child's play compared to what Luffy did with lightning bolts. It puts to shame Big Mom's got a lightning tension. It's everywhere. But Kaido isn't dodging the smoke. Number 11, Kaido began to talk about Haki having the power to conquer the world and Gold D. Roger. Devil Fruit powers alone cannot conquer the world. I think it's actually very important, even though I disagree. I think it is a very important comment by Kaido to talk about Haki so highly. And we do see a real-time reason for this in the last section of this play-by-play. But then when he starts the speech, he clobbers Luffy with his club, and then Luffy gets into one of his bolts, but they're still rubbery. And he's bouncing around the bolts that he either A, rubberfied and they're still there, and or B, but as these stroke returns form, he bounces on them. Oh, thereby rubberfying the bolts passively, just being near Luffy. Man, but then we get to number 12. Number 12, over the head, Kaido begins to spin his... Nani? Yeah, I need to stop, dude. Kaido begins to spin the club around his head. What is that? That is the setup for Kaido's Conquerors of Three World Ragnaroku attack. Folks may have caught that. He does that again in the middle of the fight, in the middle of that sequence against Luffy. And then after Kaido says, just like how Roger was not a Devil Fruit power user, he skywalks. He kicked the air full bore like a Sanji skywalk, a CP9 moonwalk Geppo. He did that. He did that to get to Luffy in the herd of lightning bolts after he was stunting on him after a Ragnarok. And here comes number 14. Right after Kaido skywalks, there is that purple lens flare all around him as he's flying towards Luffy. And in real time, he validates his own comments about Haki. As he is in purple star form, lens flare mode, and he's flying up towards Luffy, we see the lightning bolts around Kaido start to dissipate, the ones that Luffy made or created via the Devil Fruit. That was an amazing detail showing you the power of the Haki. And then, of course, the last thing, number 15, the Death Destroyer Thunder Bagua. Oh, man, that was, like, it was nasty in the manga, but you don't get the real sense of how nasty it really was because the effects in the manga were kind of lackluster. In the anime, oh, it's disgusting. For the first time, Luffy in Gear 5, even though he has a super crazy rubber body, for the first time in Gear 5, Luffy hardens his guard. He has to harden to protect himself from the Death Destroyer Thunder Bagua, and it doesn't work. Maybe he did to like mitigate it, but Kaido bypassed it and devastates Luffy. And this attack is so impressive, just visually, that the shockwaves span for dozens, if not hundreds of miles and kilometers around Onigashima. Yeah. Bro, I'm done. Like, I don't know. I'm done. That play-by-play should give you a good idea of how phenomenal it was. Even though it's only 3 minutes, I think it's enough to put that episode as a whole at like a 8.5 or 9 out of 10. Even though the other content in terms of actual quality is like the greatest, it still has good substance for, of course, the gigantic fist in the sky, of course, Momonosuke's content, which is good for his character, very good for his character, but that fight shook. Oh, that sequence, oh, just absolutely shook. And it's the consistency of the highest quality animation and the outstanding choreography that is the best I have seen in One Piece on God, all right? In fact, on God, to the point where, as King of Lightning, I had to give the #2 spot of Lightning user in the series to NL because Luffy, in those 3 minutes, stole the gold. He stole the gold medal from NL. I could be capping, but I think I proved my case here. This is just, oh, mwah. Let me know your stance on the subject matter at hand. If you enjoyed this video, easy peasy, give your boy a thumbs up. Of course, subscribe to the channel, double tap subscribe, and click on that bell to join the notification squad. I'm gonna catch you cats on the flip side.
See you. Bye bye.